Yep. All right, so good morning, everyone. I'm Ka Hei Lei, and I'm from the University of Manchester. So today's our presentation is about the result of part of the research project of the University of Manchester. So the topic is about mathematics self-efficacy of secondary school students in the UK, the role of perceived parental support and teaching practices. So this is the outline of today's presentation. So we will briefly go through the literature about math self-efficacy, parental influences, or teaching practices. I will also introduce about our project and how we did the data collection, the methodology that we use, and also some results from the measurements that we developed, and also the result of statistical modelings. So the research focus of our study is how is UK secondary school students' mathematics self-efficacy, so MSE, are associated with their perceived parental support, perceived teaching practices, and also the individual characteristics of students, so such as their gender, year group, as well as their attitudinal factors. So we can see that this is the proposed theoretical model of our study. So our Bandura defines self-efficacy as our individual's self-confidence of his or her capability to organize and also control over his or her own actions in order to produce given attainments. There are 4 sources of self-efficacy that our individual can use it to make judgment about their self-efficacy belief. So the first one is the mastery experiences. So this is how one thing how well they did in the past. And the second one is vicarious learning. So it is similar to social comparison. The third one is verbal persuasion. So the verbal encouragement from teachers, from our parents, from their peers. The last one is the physiological and emotional state of the individuals. And why self-efficacy is so important? So our self-efficacy was found as a common non-cognitive predictor of academic performance in a meta-analysis, focusing on the psychological correlates of college students' academic achievement. And for a secondary school student, according to the result of our PISA data, our students' math self-efficacy is strongly associated with their math performance across countries. So this is a theoretical model showing how parental influences can affect their child's academic outcome. So we can see that parents' own school experience and also their own cognition about the school can directly affect how they prepare the home learning environment for their child, as well as how much involvement they are going to do for their child. And all this in turn can affect their child's school adjustment and also their school outcome. And in the previous research also showed that parental involvement is linked to children's attitude towards mathematics, and also children's future participation in advanced mathematics and also their maths achievement. And now I'm going to talk about the teaching practices, the literature about this. So scholars try to summarize and suggest that there are 6 dimensions of learning environment which can be different in our classes. So for example, the first one, construction of knowledge versus direct transmission of knowledge. Another example, the third one, personal meaning. So that means our students' own understanding, what the students understand, versus the teacher-led meaning, so what the teacher understands. And also, the fifth one, our teachers should have emphasize cooperation and communication in class, rather than just individual learning for their students. So actually, Rulofs and his colleagues try to describe this 6 dimension in a continuum with 2 extreme endings. So one is representing the more traditional, more teacher-centered, transmissionist teaching, while the other extreme end representing a more interactive, student-centered teaching practice. It is also widely accepted that effective maths teaching should be connectionist. So what does it mean connectionist is? So for example, teachers should connect their teaching to students' own mathematical understanding and also our students' mathematical productions. Teachers should also connect the teaching across different mathematics topics and also connect the mathematics knowledge with other scientific knowledge. So our project is also based on this concept about transmissionism and also connectionism. So previous work of the team has also created the measure of transmissionist teaching practice. So it can use to assess both teacher and also assess students. And then the team tried to associate the transmissionist teaching practice with our students' learning disposition in mathematics. So the results show that the more traditional, the more transmissionist teaching is associated with the decline of students' learning dispositions in mathematics. So here just a brief reminder of our research question. Okay, so here we come to our project design. So basically, we recruited students from this UK secondary school from year 7 to year 11. And we also did the data collection at 3 different time points. So like we first collect students' data at the beginning of an academic year, and then we collect the students' data again by the end of that academic year. And then later we also try to collect data again at the beginning of the next academic year. So actually this research study is like a longitudinal study. But the analysis of this research report, I will just focus on the data collected at the data collection point 1. So there are altogether 40 UK secondary schools participated in our study, and there are also more than 13,000 students participate in the study. Okay, so what is the methodology that we use? First, we use the RAGS analysis in the WinStep software to help us for the measurement development. So in this study, we developed the math self-efficacy skill, parental support skill, and also the perception of transmissionist teaching skill. And after that, after the validation, we also do some qualitative checking for our measures. And after collecting data from the secondary students, we further do some statistical modeling with general linear regression in RStudio. The reason that we do this is we try to make association between math self-efficacy, perceived parental support, transmissionist teaching, and also students' characteristics. Here just some brief description about the main structure, the construct that we use in our study. So the first one is maths identity. So it is a kind of attitudinal factor of students. So it is related to students' self-concept for mathematics. So all items in this skill is related to the feeling and also preferences of students towards mathematics. And so that means the higher the score of this skill, the more positive the student related themselves with mathematics. And the next one is math self-efficacy. So it is measuring students' self-confidence in solving mathematical problems. The next one is perceived transmissionist teaching practice. So this skill is, the higher the score of this skill, the more traditional and more teacher-centered the practice student report they have. And the last one, perceived parental support is, the higher the score of this skill, the more parental support the student perceive to have from their parents. Here is just the brief result about the math self-efficacy that we developed. So the RAGS model show that our math self-efficacy skill is showing good psychometric properties. So like how do we prove that it's a valid measure? So like for example, we check the item fit statistic, the category or statistic, person item map. So here I also show you the person item map here. For the bottom part of this figure, we can see that one end is representing the more easier item, and the other end is representing the more difficult items. So according to this figure, we can show that all items in our scale distribute quite evenly along the axis. So that means our scale includes both easy, medium, and also difficult items. So it proves that it's a good skill for assessing students' math self-efficacy. And the last one, we also do the dimensionality checking. So that means we have to make sure that this measure is just measuring one factor, one dimension. This is the math self-efficacy result of the whole sample in our study. This is also, here is the modeling results, but because there are so many numbers, so I try to summarize it in the next slide. So here we can have a look on the summary. So the first important thing is we find out that there is actually significant interaction between gender and year group in the first model. So we try to include this interaction for the subsequent models as a control variable. And then after that, we try to explore the association between other explanatory variables and math self-efficacy. So the important thing here is that we can see in model 4, perceived parental support is originally positively correlated with math self-efficacy. In contrast, perceived transmissionist teaching is negatively correlated with math self-efficacy. However, starting from model 5, when we included math's identity, it's a kind of attitudinal variables of student. After we include that, we can see that perceived parental support become negatively correlated with math self-efficacy, while perceived transmissionist teaching is positively correlated with math self-efficacy. So the results suggested that actually there is other interaction between math's identity and these two variables. So we do further analysis for their interaction. So this figure can make sure to have a better understanding how the interaction works. So for the first figure, we can see that there is interaction between year group and gender. So we can see that for male UK secondary students, their math self-efficacy increased gradually across the secondary school. However, for female students, the self-efficacy development is not that dramatic, not that obvious across year 8 to year 9. But after that, the efficacy still gradually grow up. And the second the second figure is showing the interaction between transmissionist teaching and math's identity on efficacy. So we can see that so on the top, the yellow line, this line is representing students with high maths identity. So that means this kind of student, they show more positive feeling, more positive preference towards mathematics. So for this kind of student, transmissionist teaching is positively correlated with their math self-efficacy. However, at the bottom, we can see for the blue line, this blue line is representing students with low maths identity. So this kind of student, they show less positive feeling and also positive preference towards mathematics. So for this kind of student, transmissionist teaching is negatively associated with their math self-efficacy. The last figure is showing the interaction between parental academic support and also the interaction between parental support and maths identity on math self-efficacy. So again, for the yellow line on the top, representing students with high maths identity, parental academic support is negatively associated with their math self-efficacy. And for the blue line, representing students with low maths identity, parental support is positively correlated with their math self-efficacy. And this figure is not about interaction, but just provide you more information, showing that so for parents who has participated in the higher education, their children would perceive to have more parental support from their parents. But for those for parents who has not participated in higher education, their children would report to have less support from their parents. So here it comes to our conclusion. The first one is social contextual factor at home and at school are actually significant correlates of our UK secondary school students' math self-efficacy when we already control the effect of our students' individual characteristics and also the emotional variables. For students who identify more with mathematics, so that means they like mathematics more, parental support seems to have a negative impact on them. And this is also consistent with the finding of previous meta-analysis, which showing that when adolescents, they start to develop to become a more autonomous and efficacious individual, actually they need less direct parental support, such as homework checking, homework teaching, something like that. However, more transmissionist teaching practice at school can help to increase the math self-efficacy of students with higher math identity. And we believe that it may be because this kind of teaching practice can reinforce students' own ability. For students who believe that they are not good at mathematics, they don't like mathematics, more parental support and less transmissionist teaching practice can help them to increase their self-efficacy. And by the end, our findings also suggest the need for further research on math self-efficacy as well as its association with other social contextual factors. This is especially important in the international comparison study when considering this construct, because investigate such cultural differences also point to the need to explore the universal utility of math self-efficacy across cultures. So that's the end of my presentation. So we would like to thank you, the ESRC grant, so Economic Social Research Council, their funding. And here is our references. But if any of you are interested in this project or interested in the findings about our measurement, you can go to our website for this project, www.teleprison.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Do you have questions, Sam? I give you the first question.
Okay.
How can you explain that students with high mathematical identity don't need much parent support?
So like just we saw that actually this result is consistent to some previous finding, which showing that when students they are developed to become more autonomous, like when they develop their they have self-development to become more autonomous. Actually, they don't need that much parental monitoring or parental support, direct parental support, like checking their homework, monitoring their study. Yeah. So maybe this is because it's a kind of declining. So like they may believe that parents don't trust them, and so like decline their self-perception. Yeah.
If you research, maybe you can tell us at what kind of support they need.
Oh, okay. So actually, according to the current literature, so parental involvement there are many few dimensions of parental involvement. So like the behavioral support, or giving them more resources, or like giving them some beliefs or expectations, something like that. So I would say that for students with higher maths identity, parents may try to focus on the beliefs and also expectation aspect, but not direct behavioral monitoring, direct behavioral management. Yeah.
Thank you. Somebody help. Can you tell?
Okay, thanks for your presentation, very interesting. I have a question about data collection of your study, because as I understand from your presentation, so it's actually a longitudinal study in which you collect the data from teachers and students over a few time points.
Yes.
So in this kind of research design, attrition is almost unavoidable. So I want to know the attrition rate in your study, first question. Second question is, do you have any ways, or what have you done in order to encourage teachers and students to continue in your study, to provide data for your analysis?
Okay, sorry that for the first question.
Attrition. Can you tell us about the attrition? That means to drop out.
So yeah, actually it happens. So like, because we directly recruit the students through the school. So like when the schools agree to participate, so actually their student will continue to participate. But yeah, this really happens. So some students they drop out. But as I said, because we do communication to all the schools, so they agree that they're willing to participate. So yep, so it's not a really that big problem. But yep, some people drop out.
And also, a follow-up question is, how do you deal with some cases with missing data?
Okay, so actually because we are using RAS analysis, so RAS analysis is a kind of analysis which we can still do validation for our measure even if there is missing data. So like they already counted the effect of missing data. Yep.
Another question? I have a question for you.
Yep.
How can you, from your opinion, teaching practices help to develop this ability? How teachers' practices help to develop self-control?
All right, so you mean how teaching practice?
What kind of teachers' practice? What features of this practice?
Can help the disabled
to help children to improve this ability.
Okay. So as I mentioned, our concept, the project of our concept is based on the connectionism teaching practice. So like actually the connectionism already mentioned in many teaching policy in the US and also in the UK. So like they emphasize we have to connect for example, teacher is not just teaching the student separately, they have to connect the teaching with students' own understanding. And also they have to connect their knowledge across different mathematical topics. And also the best way is like connect with other related scientific knowledge. Yep, so.
Thank you. Have you questions? No? I think that it was very interesting research with future, because it's only a part of a great problem. What is the role of parents and teachers in a connection without them? It is a very interesting problem. Thank you very much all. And some minutes later, we begin the next discussion. You have a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Please.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. I have a very simple question. Why did you choose this topic to research, and what kind of problem do you want to solve by researching this topic?
Okay, so firstly, because this is related to my PhD dissertation. So like what I want to do is because actually self-efficacy, so like for example, we all know that according to the PISA result, Asian students' mathematics performance is like usually outperform the Western student, but however, they have lower self-efficacy. But actually, according to the literature, self-efficacy should be positively correlated with students' performance. So I would think that actually there is problem for the universal utility of math self-efficacy across the cultures. And so I also think that if we want to figure out this cultural or comparative problem, we should focus on like parental or support. So like we all know that our like Asian culture, they are from Confucianism culture. So like they value teacher, value their parents a lot. So maybe parental influences is really a big factor that affecting that why our self-efficacy is not that high in our Asian culture.